What is up, my guys? It's your boy Jabark, back with another video. It's been a while since I made one of these. So I don't have too much on the mind, but I did spend a couple weeks caffeine free, and what I realized about myself, and not only about myself, but also even the substances that I take, was it actually spoke a lot into how I live my life and how I use different things to supplement my personality. So what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about how being how I noticed the difference of how I was caffeine free versus how I was after I had a cup of coffee, breaking breaking the fast, so to speak. Not really fast, but like just the weaning off caffeine and then getting back on it. So to start off, when the first few days of when I got off caffeine was fairly easy peasy. I was definitely a lot more tired the first day and second day, but it wasn't too bad. It wasn't until around the third or fourth day where I started to feel a little bit irritable and started to get a little bit of headaches. But after I broke through that, it was day 5 and 6 where I started to notice the difference of my attitude and my personality. So I was a lot more sleepy than I am after coffee, which, that's to be expected. The caffeine is, you know, making your brain basically forget that it's tired. So, I'm pretty sure the exact mechanism is that it binds to the amyloid beta receptor. Well, I know that when you sleep, your body filters out amyloid beta so that kind of like sweeping the house clean for the next day. But I know that somehow the caffeine basically forgets that your brain has amyloid beta in the first place for a little bit, so that you forget, quote unquote, forget that you're tired. So I noticed that I was a lot more sleepy than usual. So I tended to take an afternoon nap for that second week. Just about every single day, I took an afternoon nap. Uh, Usually around 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. But it varied depending on when I had time or if I had something else to do and I just had to power through it. But I did notice that I was a lot more sleepy. I did notice that I was a lot less willing to talk in certain situations. So, like, I'm usually a pretty talkative person. It's very easy to get me talking. But I noticed that I was a lot more maybe not soft spoken, but a lot less willing to speak in certain situations. My threshold to speaking was a lot higher. Like, it took a lot more to get me involved in a conversation. It and if usually beforehand, before I did this, if there was a straight conversation going around, it was pretty easy to get me to like interject in the middle and just get involved. And I noticeably didn't do that. That was kind of surprising for me, is that I just didn't get into the conversations that I normally would have. Then immediately the day, and I noticed that for the first and second week, because I didn't see anybody much for much of the first week. It was at the end of the first week that I had noticed that I talked less, because I was that was the first day that I actually was in front of people to notice that. Then it was the second Sunday after that where I'm back in with the worship team, and I noticed it again that I was less willing to talk. And then that day I had a cup of coffee that after that, and it was probably around middle of the day, probably 9 to 10 p.m. or a.m., 9 to 10 a.m. And I immediately noticed, maybe not immediately, but like once it kicked in, like 30 minutes later, I was like, brain was lit up. eyes had like I was seeing a little bit more color. The second that there was some kind of funny conversation going around, I immediately noticed that I hopped into it. I don't even remember what I actually said. It was just kind of one of those like small talk moments, like inside joke moments, and I just jumped in to make it. But I noticed immediately that part of that was the caffeine that was actually talking more than it was actually me. And I wouldn't have noticed that specifically if I hadn't spent 2 weeks off of it. Because usually you're just thinking, oh, I'm always me. It's always my personality. But at that time, I realized, oh, it wasn't me actually getting involved in the conversation. It was the caffeine, and that got me thinking. We take all kinds of substances all day, every day. Like we supplement our lifestyles with caffeine, with sugar, with other substances like our screens. We get our dopamine fix from TV shows, from movies, video games, and it got me thinking how much of our personalities, how much of our characters are actually supplemented by these other substances. What if fasting, like the withholding with what's like the abstaining from food for certain periods of time, what if the purpose of fasting is to give the body a break from the substances that it's taking in? So like these days we don't know exactly the all of the substances that we take in our food, all the stuff, all the other substances, preservatives, what else? Vitamins that are added in, minerals that are added into foods that normally don't have them. We're not able to keep track of all that anymore, especially in the corporate food industry and even in the restaurant businesses. It's not that easy to figure out, oh, exactly what kind of ingredients are inside of the foods that we have, or what kind of extra substances are inside of the ingredients of the foods that we're using to cook. So it's like, how are these foods prepared? What's in them? And then oftentimes when you look at the ingredient list on the back of a package of food, it's got ingredient names that you couldn't even pronounce if you had a 4-year degree, 8-year degree, doctorate program. Sometimes you have to be a doctor just to figure out how to pronounce these things. Got to go all the way to pharmacy school and be like, oh, tetrahydrochloramide. It's like, well, what the heck is that? And spending that time with, even just cutting out caffeine, the Lord was able to reveal to me just how much caffeine was supplementing my personality. And I'm over here thinking, oh, I just like coffee. And what's unfortunate is I do like the taste of coffee just on its own merit. And now I'm starting to notice. So, like, you know, it even I could drink decaf for all I care. If I could leave the caffeine, I do. So like nowadays, I try to get decaf more often than not. It's a little harder around the house because the only coffee we have is espresso beans, which it's not that the beans are specifically espresso, but they're not coated in the normal. They're like de-oiled, I guess. They're not coated in the oil that messes with the attached grinder to the espresso machine. So it's not. I don't. At least we don't keep. I need to look into whether there's a decaffeinated version of that. But yeah, it's not that. It hasn't been that easy to get away from caffeine altogether without just not drinking coffee. And maybe maybe that maybe for a little bit that is what's necessary to get off of that caffeine, because a lot of times we don't pay attention to just how much those things are changing how we act, changing how our body is working, how we're processing food, how or not even how we're processing food, how we process information, how we receive something that somebody says. So like whether we receive it in offense or whether we receive it with grace and with the intent to grow. And we know for a fact as a society that substances affect the way we think, and they can affect our hormonal balance. They can affect the way that our body works. So it's like we know that soy inhibits the production of testosterone in the body, and it prevents men from growing muscle properly, from their brains developing in proper masculinity, from it inhibits sperm production. So it's like, just in that regard, we know soy does that kind of stuff on the body, but like and on the mind. But what else? What else do we take in that has similar effects? Maybe not similar, but like equal. So like equal effects in different directions, so to speak. Equitable effects. So it's like, even in our food, the preservatives that we're taking in, how do we know that they're not inhibiting our body's ability to heal naturally, to produce antibodies or to produce proper hormonal balance? How do we know that the things that we drink are not affecting our personality or affecting our ability to digest? How do we know that even the things that we're watching, because we speak about things that we see with our eyes, ears, as consumption. We consider that a form of consumption as well. So it's like, how do we know that the things that we're watching are not influencing the way that we think about the world? And I mean, of course we do, but how do we know that it's not making us think in a way that we wouldn't normally think, or making us hold to beliefs or worldviews that we wouldn't hold to if we weren't watching certain things? It's like, are we truly objective in all the ways that we see things? Are we truly humble in thinking that we can be deceived at any step of our world, of our walk of life? So it's like, how do we know that the way that we think about the world isn't itself a deception because of the things we consume? If the things that we eat and drink can affect our body and mind in these ways, what about the things that we watch? And if the way that we watch, and if the things that we watch can affect the way that we think or feel, or that our bodies work, how do we know, or how are we not to say that the things that we eat and drink don't? Anyway, that's all that I want to talk about. That's some food for thought for you guys. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please consider hitting the like button and subscribing if you'd like to support the channel in an easy and free way. Other than that, if you feel led to support the channel in a more concrete way, consider subscribing on Patreon, or using the links in my channel bio if you want to donate to the page, donate to the ministry, to the effort, or check out the music by Sophia Ascent or Vindicator Servant. Those are two projects that I helped contribute to, and those would be ways to help keep things running around here, help pay off my student loans. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. Have a blessed day.